Hello, my name is Scout, also known as Skater Scout from Etsy. Thank you so much for your purchase. Let's get started with the tutorial on how to get this set up. First off, I would like to apologize for the mirrored effect that's happened here. Unfortunately, since I'm recording in OBS, there's not really a way to get past that, but we shall proceed. First, starting off, you can see I already do have it set up on my screen. I do use it myself and I absolutely love it. On the bottom left, you'll see it may look a little different however you have your OBS set up, or you possibly will have Streamlabs. Personally, as a streamer, you may want to get started with using OBS if you are using Streamlabs OBS because it does use more resources on your computer. So I do use OBS. So you'll just click on Add for the sources. You'll go to Images, and then we're going to set the first one to the body. So that's going to be the animated part. So that's why it does have to be separated in two different layers. Unfortunately, I couldn't make one layer animated and the other not without having it pass through, or else the bits would just be landing on top of it. So we'll just select the head. And so now we have the head. I do have it on 500 pixels, so it's going to show up really large, but I did that so I know some people do want a larger drop, especially if you're doing something like just chatting. They may want something bigger. For me personally, I do more gameplay, so I keep it smaller. If you're wanting to size it, you can just change the size like so, and it will move automatically. If you're wanting to change a specific size as well, you can hold Alt while you're holding it if you want to get rid of one. But that's just a tip on OBS, not something that you would need necessarily right now. So then you're going to take this and put it wherever you want. I personally have it on my subscriber goal, and I think it's a pretty cute decoration and it's not too distracting. So we have the body set. Say you want it this size, you're going to then lock it. And then we're going to now add in the other piece of the jar, which would be the jar. So then we're going to type that in as jar, browse, and then I have it provided like so. We'll click on feet, open that up, and then as you can see, this is what I'm explaining is the transparent part right here is what we're going to want it to pass through. So whenever we put the actual bits that are going to be dropping, we're going to need that underneath it. So you want to just size it. Unfortunately, there's not a way for me to have it set to the perfect size for everybody just because I did want it to be able to be resized for whatever area that you want. So you may want to size it to the exact size that you're wanting to have it at, play around with it and see where you like it. And then once it's set to where you want it, just make sure you lock it in place. Okay, so then we'll move on to the next part. So now you want to head over to Streamlabs. That's streamlabs.com. You can see it at the top right here. And then you want to sign in. If you haven't done this already and signed into Streamlabs, they have it pretty easy where you just set it up with your Twitch. You may have to sign into your Twitch, and then from there, it'll just automatically connect to Streamlabs from Twitch. At the top of the page, there's a search bar here that you can search tip jar, and then it will pull up the tip jar. I've already set up mine, so it's going to be set up with the correct settings, but you may have to change some things. So I'll walk you through there. If for some odd reason you don't see a search bar here, you can also go down to all widgets on the side right here, and then you'll just scroll down until you see the jar, which will be the second one right here, and it'll take you to the same area. Okay, so from here, this is actually where you'll be able to select what you want to activate your jar. Depending on how many follows you get, you might want to set this. Personally, for me, I feel like it might be a bit too much, so I don't have it set to the Twitch followers, but I do like it for tip donations, bits, and so on. Something to note is, unfortunately, Streamlabs doesn't allow for you to change what type of bits are going to drop. It's actually going to be determined by what somebody selects. So it is a bit more customizable for the viewers, which I find to be nice. So if somebody were to drop hearts for your bits, then heart-shaped bits are going to fall into the jar. As well as for the subs, whatever you have set for your sub badges is what's going to show up for the subs that drop. The strawberries are going to drop when you receive tips or donations. So that's when you specifically will see strawberries that I provided. But I did provide the images that you can have set. So if you do choose to, you can always set those as your sub badges, and that's completely fine as well. And then those would end up dropping for the subs. So moving on for the jar. The best jar to have selected that I found for this one is the whiskey jar. I feel like it almost fits it perfectly. So I would definitely select this, but you can play around with the other ones. But for the most part, I feel the whiskey is the best one to use. So I want to make sure you have the whiskey selected because this is going to be the shape of what it drops into. And this one basically perfectly matches the jar that I have provided. So then moving on, you can play around with the settings. I know there's a text at the top that you can have set to where it says this person donated whatever amount and it'll say what alert is specifically triggered. I personally feel like it's a little much for my stream. You may like it, so it is something that you can choose to play around with and set. Then, of course, there's the minimum bits and then the minimum tips that you can also have set for what basically triggers it. As far as the Twitch follows tips for all of these amounts set, I specifically want all strawberries falling into mine, so I have them all set to strawberries, but you can always change this even from what's not provided on mine. Say you purchased an emote from somebody else that you really like, you can also change it to that as well. And anytime somebody tips for those specific amounts, it's going to drop those so you know what is in your tip jar. So it's a really cute thing that you can actually add. Once you have this all set up, you can then go down to the bottom and over here, you'll see save settings. You'll just select that. At the top, scrolling back up, you'll see widget URL. You're going to copy this URL, which I'm not going to do because it's going to show the URL. But for you, you would go through and copy it. And then we're going to head back over to OBS. So I'm sorry, we're going to have that mirrored screen again. So now that we are back in OBS, we're going to open up a browser source. It's important that the browser source is below the jar and above the body. So if it doesn't open like that immediately, we can always drag it, so that's fine. We're going to set this as, I'm going to put hype jar, even though we have jar for the other one. So then the browser source that we had, we're going to paste it into here. So whatever it is, I'm not going to put my specific one just because it's not something that you should be sharing. And then you're going to scroll down, and I've actually provided in the instruction file, you'll find a notepad with the hypejar CSS. So that's going to look like this. And you're going to want to copy that, and then you're going to paste it into this area. So you'll paste that here, and then you'll select OK. So it's not going to work on this one just because I'm not showing the specific areas, but it's going to show correctly if you followed it step by step as I did. So then once that's done, it's going to be clear like this. It's not going to show a whiskey jar. So it does have the shape of a whiskey jar, but now it's going to be invisible. So then, as I said before, from these layers right here, it goes body, jar, hype jar. That's not what we want. We want it to be underneath the jar. So we're just going to drag it. So that way, whenever the bits drop, it's actually going behind the jar rather than in front of the jar. And then once it's all set how you want, you'll lock that. You might want to play around with the sizing to see if it's landing exactly how you want in the jar. And then from there, you can test it out from Streamlabs. So we'll go back to Streamlabs really quick and I'll show you how to do that. Perfect. So now that it's all set up, you have its size how you're wanting it. And then the hype jar of the bits falling for the widget is also sized to fit it. And the way that we're actually going to test that out, because since it's invisible, we won't be able to see that, is we're actually going to do, so here on Streamlabs, it actually allows for you to see on OBS. So you'll open this up on a separate window, and then you'll also have your software open up for streaming. And if you select test tips and donations, when you select that, it's going to show you what it's going to look like when something is donated to you. So you can go through and select all of these and see if it's dropping how you're wanting it to. Once it looks like it's falling in the way that you're wanting, you can also lock that layer. One last thing I would like to share is, say that your tip jar is finally filled to the top, which is really amazing on your part, or you're testing it out and now you have a bunch of bits in your jar that aren't real bits. So you want to empty it out. So anytime you want to empty out your jar, you'll come back to Streamlabs and then you'll just select empty jar. And then your jar will be emptied out. So then I'm going to show this as well on OBS so you get an idea of what it looks like. Again, as you see, I haven't named something separately just because when I was making it myself, I was doing it quickly. So we have it separated as cinnamon roll, the cup, and then the feet. Always make sure that the cup is right before this layer. So the jar will always be the first layer. Then it's going to go the hype widget goes behind it. So when it drops, you can see it goes behind the transparent area. And then behind that will be the animated cinnamon roll. I'm going to go on here and select test tips and donations. And then you'll see that's what it looks like. It drops in and then test Twitch subs. So again, with the Twitch subs, those are my badges. So it's going to show whatever your badges are set to, and it shows what they're subscribed at. So if somebody is subscribing at a 3-month sub, it's going to show something different than the 1-month sub. So it shows you exactly what somebody's subscribing at, which I find that to be pretty cool. The last thing to show you is just emptying the jar. So it will be up here. You'll see empty jar. You'll select that. And then as you can see, it clears out completely. So there we have it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Once again, I appreciate you purchasing and if you had a good experience, I really appreciate you to leave a nice review on my Etsy. It really does mean so much to me. And if you'd ever like to hang out, please feel free to go to twitch.tv/skaterscout and you can have some fun with us, or just let me know that you're using my product and I'd be so happy to check out your stream. Once again, thank you, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.